All right, we're going to dive into a really fascinating and honestly, a deeply counterintuitive idea. What if the key to our collective genius isn't our virtue, but our vice?
No, really, stop and think about that for a second. What if our worst traits, things like stubbornness, selfishness, even our biases, what if they aren't actually flaws we need to fix? What if they're more like hidden features, things that can actually make a group smarter, stronger, and way more creative?
So look at this. On one side, you've got the team we think we all want, right? The virtuous group. Everyone's agreeable, cooperative, totally rational. But then, what if the team on the other side, the Mandevillian one, the selfish, stubborn, biased group, is the one that actually solves the hardest problems? Well, that is the wild paradox we're unpacking today. This whole contradiction, it really gets us to the heart of what you could call a paradox of progress. It forces us to ask how collective success is actually achieved. Okay, so this idea has a name. It's called Mandevillian Intelligence, and the core principle is just mind-blowing. It's that a group can become more intelligent because its members have cognitive flaws. So get this. The group's success doesn't just happen in spite of our limitations. It emerges directly from them. So you're probably wondering, where on earth did this wild idea even come from? Well, to get it, we've got to go back, way back, like over 300 years, to a super controversial poem about a beehive. So, back in 1705, this philosopher, Bernard Mandeville, he publishes this thing called The Fable of the Bees. And in it, he describes this amazing beehive. It's bustling, it's prosperous, it's thriving, and why? Precisely because every single bee was acting out of pure greed and vanity. And his whole argument is captured in this one brilliant, provocative line: private vices, public benefits. He was basically arguing that the very things we look down on in individuals, our vices, are often the secret engines of success for the entire society. Crazy, right? So, okay, how does this actually work in practice? Let's just take his classic example. An individual's vanity, that's a private vice, right? It makes them want to go out and buy fancy, expensive clothes to show off. But that one single selfish act creates this whole cascade of public benefits. It literally fuels an entire economy of jobs for weavers and tailors and merchants. In fact, Mandeville argued that if everyone were virtuous, the economy would just collapse. Okay, so that's the 18th century fable. Pretty cool. But now, let's bring it into the modern day. Let's see how this idea builds into a real framework and explore the core mechanism of how our flaws can actually fuel success. Just imagine for a second a perfectly cooperative, virtuous team. Everyone's nice, everyone gets along. The biggest danger they face? It's groupthink. Everybody is so agreeable that to avoid any conflict, they just latch onto the first plausible idea that comes up. And hey, if that first idea happens to be wrong, the entire group fails together. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. We see Mandevillian intelligence in action, everywhere. It's the hidden engine behind major scientific breakthroughs. It's what makes the stock market work. It's baked into the very structure of democratic governments. Heck, it's even how an ant colony finds food. Yeah, let's drill down on that science example for a sec. Think about a scientist's ambition. Their kind of selfish desire for credit and fame. That's a powerful vice. It's what drives them to relentlessly poke holes in their rivals' research. And this whole adversarial process is what makes the final scientific consensus so incredibly robust. The vice of ambition ends up producing the public benefit of reliable knowledge. Wild. And this connects perfectly to politics. Just look at this quote from James Madison, one of the main architects of the U.S. Constitution. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. The guy was a total Mandevillian thinker. He knew that politicians could be ambitious and self-serving, so he didn't try to make them saints. Instead, he designed a system of checks and balances where their competing ambitions would basically cancel each other out, and that's what protects the public. Now, this table is where it gets really interesting, where we kind of formalize the whole idea. Just look at that vice column. We see all these things we're usually told are bad, right? Like epistemic stubbornness. But then look over at the public benefit it provides. It actually maintains cognitive diversity and stops groupthink from taking over. Or what about confirmation bias? Well, that so-called vice ensures that someone in the group is exploring one single path as deeply as possible, which is absolutely essential when the answer is really hard to find. But, and this is a really, really important but, there is a very fine line here. This isn't just a license to be a jerk. The exact same vices that can fuel success can just as easily become toxic if the system isn't designed the right way. So here's the key distinction, the thing you have to remember. Mandevillian intelligence works, it thrives, when all those vices are competing with each other. That's what creates the checks and balances. It fails, and I mean catastrophically, when those vices start to collude. When all the selfish actors realize they can actually gain more by working together. That's when you get corruption. That's when you get echo chambers.
So yeah, understanding these failure modes is absolutely critical. The echo chamber is a perfect example. I mean, if you just put a bunch of people with the exact same biases in a room together, their stubbornness doesn't create intelligence. It just creates polarization. The whole system just breaks down. Which brings us to probably the most practical and powerful takeaway from all of this. If our vices can be both super useful and super toxic, then what's the solution? Well, the answer isn't to try and fix people. It's to design better systems. Systems that actually account for our flaws.
This is the fundamental shift in thinking we need. We've got to stop trying to force individuals to be perfectly rational little robots. It's never going to happen. The smarter goal, by far, is to build what you could call bias-robust systems. Systems that are specifically designed to anticipate our flaws and then harness them as productive features.
And you know what? There's actually a recipe for this. First, you need a diversity of errors. Basically, people have to be wrong in different ways. Second, there has to be a real cost for being wrong, some kind of selection pressure that weeds out the bad ideas. And finally, you need a robust way to aggregate all those competing ideas to find the signal in the noise. Something like a stock market or a scientific peer review process.
Which leaves us with one final and I think pretty urgent question for our time. As we build the AI and the social media algorithms that basically run our world now, are we consciously designing them to harness our messy, flawed, Mandevillian nature for the public good? Or are we accidentally building these massive systems that just amplify our worst vices and turn them into catastrophic echo chambers? Because honestly, the answer to that question is going to define our future.